Good day and welcome back to another episode of Alberta Prepper. I'm so glad that you were able to join me. I want to thank you all for all your subscribing and likes and reviews and stuff. I'm very happy to get any feedback or anything like that. It's nice to hear from you all. It's been what, almost 20 videos now, and I I seem to be enjoying it still. We'll see how long that lasts. I I often have a short attention span when it comes to some things, but this is part of my series of telling my kids about my life. And this one is two different stories, same city, around the same age. Uh, this story, the first story is about my first ever high school party that didn't happen. In the end, it didn't happen. Basically, what I was living in a large city in Western Canada, Port City, and there was a place that was called Iona Island, and it was where all the high school students would go, and some freshmen and junior university kids would go during the weekend and party on this island that was just northwest of Vancouver International Airport. And my friends and I had decided that we were going to join them. We didn't know much about this party, but we were in high school and everyone else was going, so we wanted to go too. So we packed the car with supplies for drinks, for party things, a few other items here and there, and headed off in three different cars, all heading down the road to head over to the airport and over to Iona Island. And we get to the main road and we're driving along and we get to the turnoff to go to Iona Island. We turn the corner. It's a dark road. There's no lights. It's basically a country road at this point in the middle of the city. There's no lighting. It's a dirt road. This is why the kids like to go there, because there is a public park at the end of the road, which is Iona Island, but it's pretty much excluded from the city, and you wouldn't even know that you're in this million plus person city when you're on this island. So everyone would go to it, and we turn the corner and we start heading down. And all of a sudden, four headlights turn on full brights, and then we see the lights rotating and realize it's police. And we're like, oh. So we pull over and we're like, what did we do? We weren't speeding. We weren't drinking. We were just going down to the party. And the police decided that they were going to ask us a few questions. So they asked us, where were we going? And being good kids, we said, we're going down to the party at Iona Island. And the police officer goes, And his partners, all five of them, got out of their vehicles because a third cruiser pulled up behind us, opened up all our trunks, opened up all our doors, and searched our cars. And then they closed all the trunks, closed the doors, and us six kids were all standing there looking at each other, looking at the police, going, what's going to happen now? And they all have their little powwow, the five officers, and the sergeant comes over to us and he goes, okay, kids, we didn't find anything that's illegal. You're perfectly free to go, but I'm going to suggest that you do not go to this party. And we said, oh, why? He goes, if you go to this party, it's within your trunk and in your car, those kids are going to beat the hell out of you and kill you. You will not survive the night if you go down there to that party with that stuff in your trunk and in the cars. I would suggest highly that you get yourselves back in, go to a different beach, and party there. And we kind of looked and said thank you to the RCMP officer, who was nice. He wasn't like he was mean or anything. Like his disposition was different. And the other officers were giggling all the way through his little please leave. We go to another park. We take out all our supplies. We have our little party on a secluded park. It wasn't what we wanted. We wanted to be part of that big high school and university, bash that was happening. And what I understood, there were a few hundred kids down there. And the police were quite adamant of going down there once the time, because the park closed at midnight. Once the time came for it to close, I guess they swept in with hundreds of police and ended the party fairly quickly. But we survived and we enjoyed our party and we went home later that night. Now you're saying to yourself, well, okay, what in the world did you have in that car, in those cars, that was so bad that if you had gone down to this party, you would have gotten your asses handed to you and probably would have been killed? As the police officer's words were to us. It was, well, the truth is, what we actually had in the car, we had 5 flats of Orange Crush, about 200 helium balloons, streamers, party favors and hats, lots of flashlights, donuts, and some cakes. Yeah, we were the nerds of the school. We were the leftover kids. We weren't part of the emo group. We weren't the jocks. Even though I was in sports and athletic, I wasn't the jock type of guy. I enjoyed sports. I was very good at sports, but I didn't go out of my way to be a sports guy, as in do everything that the other sports guys did. I enjoyed hanging out with friends and spending quiet nights with friends, going to restaurants, going out to the beach, stuff like that. So basically, what the cop was saying was that we were so square that the kids would either make fun of us, beat the living shit out of us, or beat us to death and take our stuff. And he was protecting us from being so stupid as to think that going to a party that had hardcore drinking, drugs, and everything else was going to appreciate a bunch of high school kids coming down there with a bunch of Orange Crush and other party stuff. That's the kind of life I became as I got older. I was still adventurous. I was still a little out there, but I was a nerd along with it. I had good grades. I was a good kid. I stayed out of trouble. Now for the second story. Same city, several years later. We're now in college, And the same friends, excluding a few of the other friends that were with us that night, were all heading out to a party. We were going to our first house party. We were excited. We had had house parties ourselves as our own group, but this is the first one that we had been invited to as university kids. Excited. We were like, yes, great. So my friend got his mom's car and we all piled in and we were heading over to that party. That night it was raining. And we were laughing and talking and keeping up, and we were just driving down the road normally. We hadn't drank anything. We're not real drinkers, and I'm still not a drinker. And we missed the turn. And I go, wasn't that the street that we were supposed to go down? We were supposed to go down 41st Street. And my friend looks and, oh, crap. So he said, well, we'll just grab the next street. We'll turn left on that one, and then we'll kind of jerry our way back. So we turned the corner to go on to the next road. And in this area of Vancouver, all the roads are old carriage roads. So they weren't built for cars. They were built for horse and buggy carriages. So they're quite narrow and the curbs were extremely high. Well, my friend didn't know this, and neither did I. And he turned the corner a little fast and we bounced off the curb. And we all look and sparks are coming off his mom's car as we're scraping against the curb. And we all say at the same time, ooh, sparks. Hey, we're 18 and we're stupid and we're nerds. So it was kind of funny that we all knew that his ass was grass when his mom or dad sees the rubbed up rims, but it happened. At that time, because we were all looking at the sparks at the side of the car, we didn't know that the road turned at a curve and the car was heading straight for a tree. We all turn our heads at the same time after the spark stopped because now the car's on the road again. We look up and all in unison go, oh, and we slammed into this tree head on. The front of the car wrapped around the tree. I had put my knees through the dashboard. My seatbelt held me back, which was fine. And I put my hands into the dashboard and the seatbelt held me so tight that my body had so much force behind it that it literally separated the muscle off my ribs. I was in a whole lot of pain. Nothing compared to my friend who was a driver, whose seatbelt, upper part of the seatbelt failed, and he put his head into the windshield. Not a huge amount, but enough that there was a breakage in the windshield and blood on his forehead, and kind of knocked himself goofy. And my friend, who was in the back seat, got impaled by my other friend's mom's curling broom. That happened to be sitting on the floor that got kicked up and he landed on during the accident and got shoved into him. The friend in the back pulled himself out of the car and walked away, completely confused, dazed, and everything. Like he was in complete shock and he just walked away. I looked over at my friend and I looked at him and I said, "You okay, Chris?" And Chris just looked at me, a little bit of blood coming down his face, just like, oh, just, And I was like, don't worry, man. I'm going to get us help. I looked back into the back to see where my other friend was, to see how he was okay. I said, hey, are you? And realized he was gone and the door was open. And I'm like, where the hell did he go? So I undid my buckle, got out of the car, walked over to this lady's house, knocked on the door, and said, call 911. This lady was so scared that a big black 6 foot plus black man was standing at her door, looking dazed and confused. She goes, if you don't get off my porch, I'm calling the cops. And I was like going, good. Call the cops, call the ambulance, call the fire department. We've been in an accident. She goes, get off my porch, get off my porch. And I'm like, call the cops. I don't care. Call them. She goes, I'm calling the cops. And she ran back into her house. Now, this is before cell phones. Well, I had a cell phone later on, but this is before cell phones were really popular. So you had to run into the house and actually phone someone. So she phones the police and says some crazy man is at my door screaming about calling the cops and stuff. I'm scared and stuff. And the police come and the ambulance comes and the fire department come and they all like, holy crow, are you boys okay? Were only two of you? And I go, no, there was a third guy. And the police go, we just passed some guy sitting on the corner puking. And I was like, did he look like this? Yeah, that's our friend. He was in the back seat. He had walked a block and a half away. Oh my God. Anyway, so we're all sitting there. My friend, who was in the driver's seat, was carried into this lady's house because the fire department wasn't impressed by this woman who instead of phoning for help, phoned for the cops to try and get this person who was injured in an accident arrested for bothering her at her door. To this day, I look back and I look at the people who live in that neighborhood of Vancouver and think they must be a bunch of losers. Anyway, rich losers, that is. Sometimes money vacates you from brain power, obviously. So we start getting treated, and we kept being asked the question, are your knees okay? And I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. My chest hurts, but my knees are fine. Why? He goes, no, okay. Who was driving? He was driving. Who was driving? He was driving. Who was driving? He was driving. And the driver's like, I was driving. And he's like, oh, okay. How much have you had to drink? We didn't even get to go to the party. We haven't had anything to drink. He goes, we're going to test your blood. Just to let you know that. And we're going to test your breath. Okay. And it's like, so how much have you had to drink? Nothing. We didn't have anything. We haven't even been to a party yet. We were going to the party. We got lost and we got into an accident. So about what felt like hours, we finally were transferred to the hospital in our own community in Greater Vancouver. And the doctors were like going, how are your knees? And I go, my knees are fine. Why? What's going on? What's with the knee thing? The fireman asked me, the police asked me, the ambulance driver asked me. Now you have asked me, what is wrong with our knees? And he goes, well, do you feel anything? No. He took x-rays of my chest, took x-rays of my knees, took x-rays of my friend's head, took x-rays of his knees, took x-rays of my friend who got impaled by that curling broom. We all got treated. We all were released later that night into our parents' custody. We all got home, and we all basically passed out from all the activity that had gone on the night before. except for myself, who had the worst sleep I'd had ever because I just couldn't get comfortable. My chest was in pain, and I had asked the doctor, "Is there anything that you can do?" And he goes, "You just have to let it heal. There's not much you can do. Your 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 muscle tissue has separated from your rib cage, and there's not much we can do about that except let it heal. There's no breaks, no nothing. So you're fine. Your knees are fine." And I go, "What about the knees?" And they wouldn't tell us. So a few days later, my friend, whose mom's car was now totaled, had gone to the junkyard to get their personal possessions out of the car and take it home. And he noticed something when he looked in the front of the car. He came back and said to me, he goes, "Do you remember all those questions about our knees?" It's like, "Yeah, I know." He goes, "There are 4 indents that are almost a foot and a half deep into the dash of the car, where our knees had literally gone into the dashboard. We had literally imprinted our legs in the dashboard. Perfect indents of bent knees in the dashboards." And I just looked at him and I said, "Holy smokes." So that's why they were kept asking us. He said, "Yeah." I go, "My knees feel fine." He goes, "Mine too." What a miracle. Well, my friends and I, we never stuck together much after that year. But we do remember that moment of of the accident and think back and laugh now because we survived something that we shouldn't have. By the grace of God, we all did. And what a night that was. I went to a few parties later on, university parties. I didn't have a lot of fun with them. I do have a story about one that I think I'll leave for another day. But I wanted to let people know a little bit more about myself and the story that I had. I hope that you enjoyed it, and if you did, subscribe, like, and I look forward to telling you more. Alberta Prepper out.